UNESCO. Thank you very much, Deputy Director of UNESCO, creator of NiñaSTEM.
Me emociona mucho estar con ustedes en esta fantástica iniciativa.
It is a pleasure, and it is very exciting to be here with you with this initiative. As Jose Antonio said, I was a founder of NiñaSTEM, but it's always better when initiatives can move forward regardless of who is leading. But it is a pleasure when Mario Lopez Roldan is now the head of the center in Mexico, because he is the one that came up with the name NiñaSTEM with Adriana and Roberto Martinez and the Department of Education of Mexico. And I want to thank the Mexican government for their interest. We were thinking about a way of recovering the experience of so many successful women in STEM, great Mexican women who are here to us, and we wanted to learn from their experience to help girls to be enthusiastic about following a career in STEM. That was the starting point of this very successful career with the support of each one of you. I want to acknowledge this initiative to turn it into a regional initiative, which should be a global initiative with the support of UNESCO, where gender equality is a priority of UNESCO, as was recently mentioned by the Secretary General. And we want to help close the gap where women are lagging behind. And in Latin America, know that UNESCO is with you to help you, and will be supporting you to move forward. I want to thank the mentors. Thank you very much for being there. Mentors like Carmen, Onitzel, and Julia, and many other mentors are doing this work pro bono. They just go and give talks to girls to get them excited, to tell their stories. They say, my story is a story of success, and it is exciting. And this also has to do with the level of ambition and the trust we put on our girls, and decisions that are made by the girls when they see that there is a possibility to choose a career path. It is great. We are facing a challenge. The challenge is still there, and this is the least exciting side of it. After COVID, we are now facing the war in Ukraine with huge flows of refugees, mostly women, and the impact of COVID has been bigger in those career paths where women are underrepresented. We have seen important progress. We are seeing new generations of girls going down this path with lower limitations, at least regarding their own personal aspirations. They are still underrepresented. We are still only 1/3. As we already said 10 years ago, progress has been made, but still few girls choose this career path. And going beyond that, because when they start this path, the world, the business world, can be really unkind to women, so women finally get disconnected from their career path, or they end up not graduating in this field. At UNESCO, we have the topic we call Women STEM, which is an iconic program with the L'Oreal Award for Women in Science. We also issue a yearly report of women in science. My sector is human and social sciences, and we issued the first global recommendation with 163 countries regarding artificial intelligence ethics. We are proud because it is the only international instrument that includes one chapter for gender. We talk about non-discrimination, we talk about inclusion, diversity, competencies in AI, but we see that there is an issue with an underrepresentation of women, and we're talking about 1/3 of women One third of the people in STEM, it's only women make up only one third, and there's a lot to do in artificial intelligence and technology development, because these new technologies are building new markets, are building products, are building new ways of being connected. And if women are not represented in this field, we will have less sustainable and less representative, more discriminatory worlds. So it is not just urgent. It is not just going back and recovery after COVID, but a topic of sustainability, where we can have better results when women are involved. I want to thank you very much. We are very enthusiastic about this initiative. Frederick Mazaron and Laura Romers in the Mexican office are in contact with you, and they are already working on the topic of mindsets. Equality has to be legislated. We need affirmative action such as this program, but also we need resources, and we have to change the mindsets. So in those places where the stereotypes play a role, like work, family, and school, can have a change to help women follow the path they want. So I am here to support you. Remember, UNESCO is behind this. Behind you, supporting you, and we hope this will be very good for Latin America. Thank you very much for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you very much, Gabriela. Gabriela helped create this program. Ambassador Sibel Galvan, permanent representative of Mexico to the OECD, had the idea to determine how these type of dialogues, these types of events can help us understand initiatives in other countries of Latin America, to try and extend our initiative to other countries. Thank you very much. I give the word to Ambassador Sibel Galvan, who is also co-chair of the Latin American Regional Program for OECD. Thank you very much, Jose Antonio. It is a pleasure to be here opening this session with Deputy Secretary Ulrich Knudsen, who has been leading the gender initiative in OECD. We have been pushing hard, and I want to thank Gabriela Ramos. She was one of the people that set the foundation for this initiative. Before we begin with our presentations, I want to emphasize Mexico's work as co-chair of the Latin American Caribbean Regional Program of OECD and its role in this very important initiative. You know that one pillar of the LAC program at OECD is about social inclusion. There's no need to explain why it is important to move forward with equal opportunities for children, for women and girls, because one of the main objectives of this program, and it is also a priority for the Mexican government, but beyond that, in Latin America, most countries face the same challenges regarding equal participation of girls and women, with negative impacts on the development levels of countries and the region. Specifically, the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, have this issue more clearly visualized. And that's why the NiñaSTEM initiative is especially relevant to bring girls closer to sciences and mathematics, to permanently reduce the technological and pay gap, empowering women and promoting the national objectives of gender equality. I don't want to take up much time, but I would like to broadly talk about inclusion. Currently, in our countries, about half the population or more is made up by women, and yet women are underrepresented in many areas. According to recent information from UNESCO, only 35% of people in higher education in STEM and less than 30% of
Las brechas de género en áreas estratégicas como las incluidas en el ámbito de STEM impactan el desarrollo humano y económico y reducen sustancialmente las posibilidades de innovación para enfrentar los retos que enfrentamos.
So we have to work hard to face our challenges. Gender equality is essential to attain the social inclusion objectives. To move forward with this agenda, the green agenda, the productivity agenda, we must insist in fostering STEM in our region. It is important to put an end to the stigma, to change the mindset in this sector for girls and young women, to consider going down this path as a real objective so that further on they can choose a career and be successful and have a career in non-traditional sectors for them. I think this initiative has done great things in Mexico, and it can help face the challenges we share with the rest of the region. In Latin America and the Caribbean has reached a certain parity in research with women, between women and men. They are still underrepresented in the higher levels of professional careers, and they are still a minority in many STEM fields. Therefore, Mexico, through the OECD-LAC program, is willing to share experiences and lessons learned with colleagues from the rest of Latin America. We believe in the value this initiative has for the region, adapting it to the needs of each national context. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I want to thank our three champions who have shared their vision and opened this event. Now we will begin with
Jose Antonio, can I just very briefly recognize my old friends, Mario Lopez and Gabriela Ramos here on the call. I haven't seen them for a while. Thank you so much for participating here. And of course, also thanks to you, Sybil. But we have seen each other in a while. We saw each other just a few hours ago, but thank you all for your contributions here. It's a pleasure to have all of you on the call.
Thank you, Ulrich.
Bueno, y quizás para añadir, querida embajadora,
and if I may, Ambassador, it is great to see you. Dear Ulrich, congratulations to both of you. Well, thank you very much to the three of you for your opening remarks. Now we will go to our sessions. The first session says, why do we need more women in STEM? This is more empirical evidence, and we will talk about the experience of the countries. I want to give the word to Marta Encinas Martin, Counselor and Gender Ambassador at OECD, and Diana Toledo from OECD, Head of the Education Directorate. They are going to talk about the main findings of OECD's work. Marta, Diana, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jose Antonio. I'm going to present a brief summary. There are so many data that we have gathered through PISA about women in STEM, and the initiative of LAC program with Mexico and with Gabriela Ramos. It's a pleasure to see you here. We only have 5 minutes, therefore, I am going to focus only on aspirations of students. And I'm going to talk of why it is important to begin working with children at an early age, but we need to go back a little bit in history to see how certain cultural constructs are still behind us. For centuries, women had been relegated to the home to bear children, take care of the family, the home, etc., while men went out and were providers. They worked and they focused on culture. If we read ancient philosophers' work, many times they said women is nature, man is culture, and women had, they were said that if a woman was intelligent, she had a male brain, and so far. But what about our teenagers? Our teenagers begin by looking at history. I'm speaking in general at the turn of the 20th century. Cambridge University was the first university to offer a degree to women. Women could go to the university, but they did not receive a degree. They were relegated to libraries. They had to dress in a certain way, and look how far have we gotten since then. Then we went to ask girls at about 15, and we asked, what do you want to do? And we still find the same cultural constructs. Women are orange. So look at this data, 2018, from the PISA work. So you see girls in orange, boys in blue. Girls want to work in fields where you care for others, like midwives, nurses, veterinarians, teachers, and boys choose engineering and ICT, like Ulrich, Gabriela, and Ambassador Sibel were telling us about. So we believe that at 15 years old, aspirations are already there. I want a career in something that takes care of others rather than careers with higher remuneration. And there's where we see the gender gap. There's a huge gender salary gap with women receiving lower pay, and that hasn't changed. Even if we go country by country, because you could say it is an average, but it's not. Look country by country. Look at the yellow diamonds. Those are children. And here it is. We asked girls if they want to study engineering or computer sciences that give the best remuneration in the labor market. And not many girls want to pursue those careers while boys do. So this is something that appears at an early age. We have information from children at 5, and already boys want to pursue certain careers deemed masculine. Girls would like both, and there is balance, but when girls begin to reach the age of 12, this starts changing and less girls want to follow careers in STEM. That's because of the cultural context where girls are raised unconsciously, because there are many ideas perpetuated at home, at school. So we have to start working early on to detect these mentality issues to begin changing them. Look at this here. Do you want to be a doctor? Look at the yellow diamonds. More girls want to pursue careers in healthcare. And the same about teaching. But I see that in Peru, for example, look at the boys who want to be teachers. And I believe that also salary plays a role. But as we can see, there is a huge difference in most countries. More girls want to be teachers compared to boys, and about 78% of all basic education teachers are women. As we go higher in the education, prestige changes, salaries changes, and there are more boys. When we talk about school principals, there's a huge difference in percentages, because even although you have more teachers who are women, most principals are men. I was looking at some information, parent teachers associations. They're mostly made up by women, but the head of the association is usually a man. So we can see that despite of the representation of women, there's still a gap. These are some other data about education, health, and welfare. Look at this. This is from 2019 and 2013. Look at the difference, which is not just aspiration. This is the percentage of girls in each field. And always, if it is health, welfare, education, most are women. 2019 in red, 2013 in green. And look at the number of girls in engineering, manufacturing, and technologies, ICTs. There are less women in those fields. And let me also emphasize something that Gabriela mentioned, and the other presenters mentioned it too. Once a woman goes into this world, if she finds herself in a hostile work, she may follow other fields, or for example, different organizations that work with OECD say that women face a hostile, less kind world for women. So we need to make a change to make these fields more appropriate or more enticing for women. But why? Am I saying that it is not an academic issue or that women don't have the capability? Because they do have the capability. They are more than capable. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, girls don't like to learn to read and write, but they are always willing to learn how to sew, which shows us a really long-standing trajectory of us telling girls, no, you don't study. Because I hear over and over that girls don't like technologies and they are not interested in that, but we are interested in it, but there is something that's stopping us. There is some obstacle, because if Jean-Jacques Rousseau says we don't want to learn how to read and write, but then PISA shows us the opposite, because performance of girls is much better in reading than in boys. So we are proving how history was wrong, how the mentalities was wrong. Even there was a time where they said that women may not even have a soul, but we do have a soul. And now they said women are not intelligent, and we are intelligent, and we are proving that with PISA. And we are intelligent and we study hard. And as we saw, the PISA results show that girls are better in reading and also score similar or higher than boys in science. Look at these scores in green. In many countries, they are much better than boys. Although on the left, we see some countries where girls in science did not get very good scores, including Mexico, Costa Rica, Argentina, Colombia, and Peru in Latin America, in this small group. Therefore, I believe that STEM niñas in Latin America is more than necessary. It's extremely relevant. It is necessary. We must lead girls into sciences to allow them to study and do a lot so we can attain great results in these countries. Let me show you this slide that I like. Shows that boys say that they like to compete more than girls in most countries. I like this slide because it can be interpreted in many different worlds. I show this slide and some people say, we must make girls compete, or they say, girls have low self-esteem, girls are not ambitious. But actually, my interpretation is that having boys having stronger attitudes toward competition is not a problem. Girls prefer to collaborate rather than compete. What I say is that we must not be comparing girls to boys, because it has always been said that whatever men have is better, so girls have to measure up to boys. For a long time, to have success at work, women had to act as men. Well, not at first, because men control the labor market, but now it is not about acting like men, but having our skills valued. We are good in contributing and collaborating. And I hear many times girls are lacking such and such, but no, they're not lacking anything. Girls have their own characteristics and they have to be valued as such. Because men compete to get a job, compete with their colleagues, but women collaborate. So you have to value the girl as she is, and we need sciences to value those characteristics to allow girls to go into this world and be less masculine so they can enjoy sciences. Boys will enjoy sciences and girls will do better, because the higher equality in the country, the more the country will progress. Now I give the word to Diana. She is going to talk about gender education policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It has been said that we need a town to educate a boy and a girl, and as Marta and our champions of gender have explained these, countries have a great challenge to bring in more girls in STEM, and this is complex. We need more causes, and there's diversity in the different countries that are facing this shared challenge, not only in Latin America, but in the rest of the world. But even though there's this great diversity, there are very little efforts that countries have been implemented in order to bring more women in STEM. These political efforts can be very specific, for example, to promote the interest of girls in science or to offer them more opportunities in specific learning, or also based on broader objectives, not only focused on students, but also including teachers and different educational environments and parents. Likewise, there are structural factors in the different policies that, for example, the use of funds through a gender perspective. And I would like to point out 3 examples from different countries that could be relevant to what we're doing. The first one is the Flemish population in Belgium that promoted a program in 2012 to promote the participation of more women, of more girls in STEM majors, and to focus more in STEM regarding professors training and website focused in STEM, another website with open educational resources in order to promote exchange of materials and teaching focused in STEM, and the design of different activities for elementary and high school focus on in STEM, and the involvement of different companies and entrepreneurs to work with boys and girls at schools so that we help them to approach these type of careers. A similar effort has been done in Ireland as part of their work to promote STEM in their educational system, and they have focused on the gender-based gap. They've talked about the gender stereotypes and the access to educational programs and the donation of resources. But something interesting about this program is that they have also made an effort to identify good practices that can be carried out at the level of schools. For example, a school invited some female roles that studied STEM majors, and this was reinforced by regular visits to schools by local industries based in STEM. Apart from that, the school identified labor experience programs in which students could have access to get relevant experience in STEM industries and related majors, of course, focusing on promoting girls or female students to approach STEM. And my third example within the region is Chile. In the latest years, the government has introduced new strategies in the educational scene, and they want to change the language used in the textbooks, making reference to boys and girls, to both genders. And likewise, the government has invited the publishing houses and writers of books to include examples of boys and girls doing scientific activities. These examples show a great diversity of approaches, but the main message that I would like to convey in this brief participation is that girls can do it, but they cannot do it on their own. They need an educational community that supports them, that help them to face a great diversity of obstacles that they face daily just because of the fact that they are girls or women. So let's help this town and these people to support this girl to reach their potential. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marta and Diana, for your contributions. This background is very useful, including statistics and experience in different OECD countries. Now, let's talk about Latin American experiences. I'm pleased to welcome our distinguished members of the panel. We'll have with us Randall Arias, who is Senior Employees Activist Specialist of ILO. We also have the presence of Nasser Faruqi, the Director of Education and Science of the IDRC. And we'll also have with us Karenina Gomez, Skills Manager for Latin America and the Caribbean, Microsoft. And Heidi Gallo, High Presidential Advisor for Gender Equality of Colombia. And good OECD and Latin American program a good friend from this program. And she told us that she got a phone call from the chair person, but she'll be part of the panel as soon as she can. And without any further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Carmen Mendina, the General Director of Higher Intercultural Education in the Ministry of Public Education, Government of Mexico, and mentor of NiñaSTEM. And we're very pleased to have her as the moderator of this first panel. So I would like to pass the floor to Carmen Edina to moderate this panel. I would like to welcome all of you once more. Thank you very much, Jose Antonio. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and for the people that are listening to us through remote means. Let me tell you that we are pleased to talk about this topic and to think about a world that requires a social equity, equality. We have heard punctual data provided by Marta and Diana some moments ago, and this provides us with the context in order to open this panel. There's no doubt that based on Mexico's experience from the Ministry of Public Education's perspective, the NiñaSTEM program is very significant, even though we still have a gap in Mexico, since only 29% out of the 100 students in the STEM fields are women. And this has to do with the fact with the social imaginary aspect where women are still thought to be devoted to homes, to take care of children, and we have to break all these glass ceilings that we have to break in order to generate this trust and confidence that go along with the theories of gender equality. And this is essential to be able to achieve our goal. I'm very glad to have here Heidi, who is a lawyer from the University of Columbia. She studied leadership and global competitiveness in the University of Georgetown. I think that her camera is off right now. I don't know if she's already present in this panel, but we would like to hear your initial remarks, your opening remarks regarding your position in this panel. That is, why do we need more females or girls in STEM in this world for the development of the countries? Well, first of all, Carmen, I would like to apologize. I'm an economics counselor of the Cubriesa. Nice to meet you. And I would like to greet all the members of the panels and all the people that are listening to us. The counselor has asked me to share with you what these strategies have been regarding to close the technological gap and the different initiatives that have been implemented in Colombia. The way we see this in our country is that we have to close this gap throughout the life of girls and young girls and females so that they can have more access to economic opportunities. Due to the recent pandemic and the economic crisis that was a result of this, has told us that what we have to close is this gap. I'm so sorry for the noise in the background. Okay, thank you. The mics are off. It's the information and technology communications, because this information and communication is sped up, and most of the companies in Colombia adopted a remote or a digital means for communication. And since women are not very acquainted with the information technologies and do not have a lot of access to them, these widen the economic gap between men and women. Let me provide you with an overview of the 5 actions that were taken in the economic field, and I'm going to focus on these and closing this gap on information technology. For example, more jobs, that is, we generate incentives so that women were hired. And we created a fund for women to foster the entrepreneurial development of women. Number 3, a better distribution of roles, and through the immunization process, and to promote more women involved in the information and technology fields. And from in the Ministry of Information and Technology and the Ministry of Science, that are the 2 ministries that support this program. And we have an alliance with Malioca, which is an innovation and technology center, so that girls and young girls can approach these areas or these fields, that they do not have any obstacles to approach these areas, regardless of the fact that they are going to work on these areas in the future. In the PISA test in Mexico, in Colombia, we've seen that women do perform better in science and technology, but this doesn't have to do with their skills. It has to do with the approach or the early access that girls have to this field. So that's why together the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Information and Technology has a cohort of professors that are specialized on teaching girls how to approach science and technology. And with the Ministry of Science, we have the program of More Women, More Science, and More Equality that is focused on female teenagers. And we've done this in the daily life of women with girls. We have NiñaSTEM, and we do this jointly with the Ministry of Education. And with the teenagers, we have More Women, More Science, and More Equality. And those girls that went through the first stage of the STEM route, so we can identify who out of them are more focused or have an affinity with science and technology. And from this program, they evolved to the next program that has been implemented for the last 4 years, and that is Mission Information and Technology. That is, those girls that already have certain skills and that have shown, apart from these skills, their interests, they become the seeder of the future programmers, scientists, and so on. And when they are older, we are guiding them to study these majors, these STEM majors, or that they develop the skills even if they don't study a STEM major. We also have a program which is digital literacy program. They are already professionals. They have their own majors, but regardless of the major they have, we can trying to close that digital gap that we're having. So they are learning to use their own information technology. So these are some of the programs and the actions that have been implemented in Colombia throughout the lives of girls and female teenagers. Up to now, we have registered more than 800 girls and youngsters and teenagers in this program. So this is an important, a significant beginning. And we've worked for the last 4 or 5 years. And these programs are intended for 23 million female Colombians. And we consider that this is part of women's everyday life because these skills are going to be useful to all women regardless of the major that we decide to study. Thank you very much. This is very interesting, Giselle. I would like to thank the High Presidential Advisor for her support for you to be here in this panel. You're doing a very interesting work in Colombia, and we can tell that the public policy in Colombia is clearly focused on the equality process. Now, I would like to ask our friend Nasser Farouki from the International Development Research Center to take the floor. What concrete actions in public policies can be part of the agenda of the Latin American countries in order to promote STEM education in more girls in this region?
Well, thank you very much, Carmen.
Muchas gracias, Carmen.
Sorry, I just have to turn off my translation. I think that, you know, it really relates to creating an enabling environment to help girls and women enter and excel in STEM careers. And that means taking sort of a lifelong approach to this. So looking both at what you're doing with girls in STEM, but also what you're doing in higher education to enable women to enter and excel in STEM careers, so then they can be role models for the girls. So one aspect is really scaling educational innovations that help girls engage and learn in STEM subjects. So for example, IDRC helped test and scale an educational innovation called Conecta Ideas in Chile. And it's been independently assessed to successfully help girls engage and learn math because they tailored the curricula to be more gender sensitive. They broke stereotypes and the narratives accompanying the math exercises, and they provided personalized support to teachers and students. So, you know, as a result, the government of Peru is asking for it to be scaled in that country. So that's one aspect, and you know, we're looking forward to sharing these learnings regionally to accelerate the scaling of educational innovations. On the issue of higher education, some of the other panelists talked about this sort of scissors effect where, you know, even though women are underrepresented in STEM careers, actually in some cases they're overrepresented or there are higher numbers of them in graduate programs. But after they get their PhD, they leave the profession because they're the ones who are asked to get the coffee. They're the ones who write the research grant, but they don't get the research funding. They're the ones who write the research paper, but their name is last on the co-publication. And so this program is with UNESCO. It's a very large program that's been going on for some time to really provide research funding to help women set up their own labs, to provide them mentoring and networking opportunities. You know, we had an evaluation recently because we were considering whether to fund it a second time, which we have. We found that it's really helped to raise the profile of women scientists within their institutions and to contribute to their national science systems, but maybe even as important, as I said, to help them emerge as leaders that serve as positive role models to girls that are considering STEM careers. And I would say that, you know, you have to pay focus not only to gender, but also to intersectionality. So we had a program called Red Meek, which was operated by CIAS and co-funded by CONACYT and IDRC in Mexico, looking at indigenous groups and providing them postdoctoral fellowships to look at you know, cutting edge research And many of these women have successfully applied to become part of the national system of researchers in Mexico. And importantly, also worked at their own community level doing public science lectures and exciting girls about going into STEM, but also doing research projects that contributed to local economic development. And I just want to say very briefly that gender responsiveness policies are important. Paying attention to gender-based violence is critical because unlike other regions, LAC faces a significant challenge related to gender-based violence. And this, ranges from microaggressions in school or at work to sexual assault. And it inhibits, obviously, female participation in learning, including in STEM. It happens in the physical space, and it's increasingly happening in the digital space. So we have a large program on artificial intelligence for development and really looking at things like algorithmic bias and who's contributing to the development of the algorithms is really very important. So that's something else that we're working on, and I'll stop there. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this panel.
Por el contrario, estimado Nasser, qué interesante que hayas puesto en el...
Thank you very much, Nasser. And it's very interesting to talk about indigenous women because in Mexico, if you are an indigenous woman, implies double discrimination process. So there's no doubt that all the lessons learned that you have shared with us are very significant. And you also mentioned the gender-based violence that is so important and critical. We've worked on some protocols against sexual assault and some other topics in different universities and educational environments. But if we do not have these areas free from violence, women will keep facing obstacles to have access to STEM the world. Thank you very much, Nasser, for your participation. I would like to ask Karenina Gomez, who through the company she represents, she has taken to Latin America training proposals. And in that sense, how do you think from your field of work and your experience, how do you think that we collaborate with the governments in this regard? Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to show you. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, I would like to show you how we were able to achieve this collaboration. Since we face a pandemic, information technology has accelerated its change, and we migrated to technology in order to face this social distancing. All sectors were affected, including education, health, and in order to continue working, we had to have access to the digital world, and we had to continue studying what skills were needed, and also automation in areas as management, services, and so on. And the scope includes very basic skills up to artificial intelligence. From our director, from top down, we are trying to convey this message about the skills, and we've done several studies with different companies. For example, with LinkedIn, this study indicates that more or less for the 2025, we're going to have 149 million of digital work that will be created throughout these years, and this will become the digital cedar, and this will have an impact on economy, because the countries that do not have as many resources and that we have to export, we'll have to export a knowledge economy. And before this scenario, all these STEM majors require that we have more women involved, more scientists, mathematicians, and engineers. And this has an impact on several areas. Social and cultural aspects are impacted. And not only women today are users of the digital world, they are also part of the dissemination of the knowledge. So today we can promote all the values through technology, the production of content, and web films and media that have a very important worldwide scope. Since currently all these majors and fields are developing and becoming stronger, and based on all these studies that we've done with several companies, what we're trying to achieve is to have this seeder for the jobs that don't exist yet. And we have a great amount of activities that are generated through Microsoft, and we have very important efforts jointly with the Ministry of Education, OECD, and some other NGOs, where we implement a lot of training programs so that women at very early age can have this training. And we have several programs. For example, we have a free collaboration for boys and girls, very updated content like MS Learn. And we have a very important proposal that we did with you and the Ministry of Public Education, and in projects such as Hacking STEM, where boys and girls have used very low-cost materials in order to know how to solve current and real problems and to be very inclusive. So we also have a lot of initiatives with the private sector, and we have some other programs with organizations such as yours that help us to reach many countries. Thank you very much, Karenina. There's no doubt that each one of us can do from our own field of experience, not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector. It is critical to have integration of both worlds in order to generate a different culture, because if we want to all these topics on cultural change take a long time in order to have an impact on the rest. And this starts from the families and our own homes. Once more, I would like to ask Giselle, well, if she's still here with us, because we have 3 minutes in order to close this first panel, regarding why we need more STEM women or girls. In this regard, I would like to ask you, Giselle, what is the impact of having more STEM women for the development of countries? And some closing remarks, please, my dear Giselle, so that we can close our first panel. Thank you very much, Carmen. I would like to thank all the members of this panel and the rest of the people that are listening to us. I would like to scale up this a little bit. Recent studies from the International Monetary Fund have concluded that to include more women in the economy will be translated into the increase of productivity between 3 and 8 percent points. Pardon, sorry, 7 and 8. And when we see the economic gap between men or women, it will take 135 years to close this gap. And the economic gap will take 267 years to be closed. So it doubles all the other gaps that are being faced by women. So when you analyze all these studies and you say, okay, who is going to be the greatest predictor of the gap between women and women in the next 30 years? This is like playing pool. If you close the digital gap and you close the economic gap that is going to take longer to close, and at the same time you increase productivity, that's where governments have to focus. They have to close the digital gap, because that is going to cover the largest gap, and it's going to have a higher impact on productivity, because women are a very important productivity factor that is underused. So that's going to lead to change.
Thank you, Giselle. Undoubtedly, digital gaps become social gaps, and it is so important that you have that view in Colombia. Now I have the same question for Nasser. Please, what is the impact of having more women in STEM on economy and the future of countries? I'm asking for your point of view because you have worked with many groups of women to help them become leaders, and also of this world team that gives support to vulnerable boys and men.
I'd say a couple of things. One is that IDRC evidence shows that you get better results from research and innovation if girls and women can fully contribute to it. So we did a large meta evaluation of IDRC supported research, and we found that more inclusion and diversity in the research teams leads to higher quality research. So there's no question that sort of the economic argument about economic efficiency and development and so forth is clear. The other aspect is effectiveness, and we've touched on this, right? So one, we have found, for instance, that Support the Sistema B, a Latin American network, that female entrepreneurs have a greater affinity for ventures that create social as well as economic value in their communities than men. And I think that that's really quite important as well when you're looking at social economic impacts. The point I made about reducing potential harms related to artificial intelligence. Great, huge innovations are coming. It's going to transform the world, but it could also harm the world, and it could harm specific groups, marginalized groups, more than others, including women. So I think that is quite important, is both the efficiency argument, but effectiveness in terms of protecting marginalized groups. Thanks.
Muchas gracias, Nasser.
Thank you
Igualmente,
very much, Nasser. And the same to you, Karenina. So what is the impact of having more STEM women, since you are part of that group and you work with different countries? Thank you. Regarding economy, we need to ensure the economic security of the whole population. We need a diverse labor force, and regarding cultural change, references are needed. I mean that girls today must identify references in the world of technology and see them as role models so they can become integrating themselves in the STEM world. Microsoft and LinkedIn have made a lot of research, and 85% of jobs by 2030 don't exist yet, and therefore we need to sow the seeds to fill those jobs that still don't exist today, like air traffic supervisor for drones with AI, or today doctors in Europe and the States are already using AI for surgery, and smart cities are becoming a more important topic, and augmented reality as well. These are all projects and prototypes, and if girls start working and getting familiar with them at an early age, we'll be sowing the seeds for the future economy, which will have an impact on society. Thank you very much for initiatives like yours, because they add up to our efforts, and they will continue. We will continue adding up efforts, and we will continue creating these role models and references for girls. Thank you very much, Karenina. We have still some time for the last question to our panel. I'm going to ask each panel member to think back on your experiences and tell us how have you worked, or why is it important to have more women in STEM around the world? So I will go back to Giselle, and please tell us, how do you think governments can help in this area? This is very important for the next steps. Thank you, Giselle. Thank you, Carmen. This is important. In Colombia, we have assigned specific resources with a tracing tool for the programs I was telling you about. And this includes, therefore, budget for programs focused on bridging the ICT STEM gap. Number two, governments cannot do it by themselves. You need participation of the private sector. We were facing a challenge regarding women in rural areas. This was a challenge of connectivity. And there were some spaces in public television that were underused. Microsoft has a technology that can help use those blank spaces in television that will help women. So through the alliance with Microsoft and Microsoft technological development to become this space available for rural women, things would be so different today, because that network helps women to deliver homework and internet. They can use this network for selling the produce they are growing and other products that they are making. So therefore, it is important for the government to also work with the private sector and close the digital gap. Nasser, from your point of view, how can governments contribute?
Yeah, thank you, Carmen. I'll make 2 points. One of them is that while focusing on individual training, mentorship, and so forth for girls as well as women is incredibly important, and IDRC continues to do that, we really realize that you have to change the environment, the system around girls and women to support them, creating that enabling environment. So our recent initiative really is focused on changing institutional policy. So if I use one example, encouraging universities to pass anti-sexual harassment policies, working with private sector companies to ensure that women are protected in those workplaces as well. So a real focus on institutional change. The second point about working together in collaboration, I think, is very important. A lot of our work relates to helping granting councils and innovation agencies to support better science that's inclusive, that supports women, and so forth. We have recently launched a call in Latin America to strengthen STI systems, enable councils in countries to work together across the region to focus on research and science that's more inclusive. So I'm coming back to that point about, having a socio-economic impact. So focusing more on institutional policies and encouraging collaboration across the region, I think, is very important. Thank you.
Nasser, aprovechando que tienes tú el uso de la voz.
Nasser, now that you have the microphone, there's one specific question for you. Could you please elaborate on actions that help prevent gender violence, given the work you are doing? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carmen. That's a super important question. I think that first you have to acknowledge a problem before you even try to solve it. First, you have to measure the problem before you even try to solve it. IDRC has been supporting this open government initiative for some time, and really happy that countries like Uruguay, Argentina, Jamaica are making commitments to report on gender-based violence, to actually measure the number of femicides in Latin America, and also using the data to inform policy responses aimed at deterring that violence. I think that the example that it came up with before, that when so many institutions, one, didn't even recognize that it's happening, that two, they didn't have policies that actually banned it from happening. Three, that they normalized behavior, ranging from kind of jokes about a woman's attire in a meeting that may not in a way seem in itself, one specific example, all that significant, but when you add it up, I remember reading about a woman who was with a private sector company in California who talked about the 1,000 tiny cuts every day that women suffer from just being in the meeting, from comments that their colleagues make online or offline, from jokes that they make. Changing our approach to normalizing that behavior and actually calling it out. And that takes leadership of the administrators, of the principals, of the heads of private sector companies, and so forth. So one, it's policies, but two, it's actually acting on those policies and not normalizing the behavior. And of course, as I said, actually understanding what's happening. So continuing to do research on this. And so much of the research on this is actually from the global north. It's not in the south. And so again, I'm taking this opportunity to announce some of the things we're doing. We launched a large Gender in STEM initiative, which is looking at those kinds of issues. It was our biggest investment last year in my program. And we're looking forward to sharing the results from that. A big part of it relates to reducing violence against women. Thanks.
Muchas gracias, Nasser.
Thank you very much, Nasser. Karenina, can you give us your point of view on how can governments collaborate? Yes, undoubtedly communication programs and strategies to make the work and contribution of women in STEM more visible, so we can create feminine role models, the creation and implementation of different programs for the development of teachers and principals with a gender perspective in order to contribute to the elimination of gender stereotypes. And undoubtedly, diversity in work teams, because that has a direct impact on successful positive results that we are getting today, beginning in the classroom all the way to work life. So the resources and support provided by the government are important. Communication and support to the programs make a huge difference for girls to begin developing digital skills at an early age. Thank you very much. Undoubtedly, this first panel was amazing. We saw very clearly the importance of budget on very focused and policies that can help us change the environment, the stereotype, the social imaginarium where women prevail in welfare and that kind of fields, and helping women and working with inclusive agencies and companies. Sexual harassment is a big issue, and it is important to stop normalizing this patriarchal culture that has been present for such a long time, and it is important to work on those areas. We had a great panel. I want to thank very much each panel member, and I want to thank the audience for their attention. Now for the next panel, we will first see the testimony of Yara Franco Medina, a student from the state of Coahuila in Mexico, who will share her experience in NiñaSTEM. Thank you very much. Good morning. I am Yara Yolotzin Franco Medina in the General Secondary School number 2, Ignacio Zaragoza. In NiñaSTEM has been very helpful. They helped me to really find out what my passion is, what I would like to study. They have given us a lot of advice. A mentor told us that if we find something that we want to do for free and it becomes our passion, that is our real passion, if we would be willing to do it for free. Being a woman is not an impediment. It is not a fault of us. It is not a defect. And thanks to NiñaSTEM, I have received lots of teachings that will be and are my guide into finding my career path. Good morning. Good morning, Latin America. Good afternoon, Europe. I am Mario Lopez Roldán, head of OECD Mexico Center for Latin America. Now we'll begin with our second panel. How can public-private sector bring forces together for a better and to help the integration of girls in the future economy? I am very pleased to be opening this second panel, to participating in this event with so many wonderful people working to close the gender gap, specifically in STEM. NiñaSTEM program in Mexico is an engine for change, is a source of enthusiasm, is a light for the future of girls and women. I was there at the conception of this program with Gabriela Ramos in 2017, contributing with a few communication tricks and sparks of imagination. I was very happy to do so. Like many, I was very concerned for the damage caused by gender stereotype in our country, our present, our future. Those stereotypes were originated and they were strengthened by the mass media, and they were pretty much clipping the wings of Mexican girls. Like Eckhart Tolle says, life is a story we tell ourselves. What our girls create, when our girls believe that they can and they will be. They cannot be what they don't know they can be. And in 2017, OECD launched the Niñas STEM Pueden, or Girls in STEM Can Do It, as it was called at the time. It was a pilot program in Mexico that intended to bring successful women in the country and other countries in the fields of STEM to the girls, so that girls and boys as well could see that, yes, it can be done. But our objective was to go from a diagnosis to action by developing an important network of mentors. Thanks to this program, about 4,500 girls and boys benefited by working with mentors and undertaking activities to awaken their interest in STEM. Several states joined the initiative. This initiative began gaining momentum, like Baja California, Chihuahua, Mexico City, Coahuila, Guanajuato, Jalisco, Nayarit, Nuevo León, Puebla, Yucatan. The initiative began bringing in the national authorities, local and state governments, private sector, civil society, and other international organizations such as UNESCO, all focused on a common objective of awakening girls' passion for STEM and to foster among boys the normalcy. We are all human beings and we all can be anything. I want to underscore the valuable contribution of LEGO Education, Microsoft, and others that have been with us from the very beginning. Thank you very much, Claudette and Karen and friends. Thank you very much. I also want to underscore the collaboration of the state of Coahuila's Department of Education that developed a hybrid educational model characteristic of this area that was born from Mr. Eugenio González Calderón, the governor of the state. Thank you very much for fostering this participatory collaboration that brings this initiative to about 25,000 girls. And we are going to ask the General Director of the Department of Education of the state. I want to thank Jose Antonio Aradavin from OECD and all of his team. Thank you very much because you have helped the Mexico Center with this project and bring it enthusiastically and professionally to the new stage of the program to bring this initiative to the rest of Latin America. Thank you, each one of you, for your interest in the program. Thank you very much for contributing with your ideas and for your support. Let's continue bridging the gap, combating gender stereotypes in any form. Let's keep on telling our little human beings. Fernando Pessoa's Portuguese poet, words be plural as the universe. Thank you very much. I give the microphone to Jose Alberto Salcido, Deputy Minister of Basic Education from the state of Coahuila. Jorge Alberto, thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon to each one of you. And I want to thank all the members of the panels. Mr. Mario Lopez is right. We have been doing a lot of work in the state of Coahuila. And thank you for mentioning Dr. Calderon. He was a precursor of NiñaSTEM. And thank you very much because this was successful. And we are going to do a lot in the next steps. And the Department of Education of the state of Coahuila has been working a lot, and girls, a lot of girls have benefited from this initiative. I want to thank Mr. Mario Lopez Roldan from the OECD Center in Mexico. I also want to thank his team, who has been with us throughout the program with the virtual mentoring. I want especially to thank the mentors, renowned scientists who have devoted time, who have been working with girls to share their knowledge and their life experiences. In the state of Coahuila, in 2019, we started the NiñaSTEM initiative with OECD authorities and people from the Department of Education of the state of Coahuila. 320 girls from junior high, star mentors, university mentors, teachers and parents participated in this event. We started this initiative in schools throughout the state. Talks were done in presence, and they included mentors from different universities. Then, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we modified our way of working. And in 2020, there were some pilot virtual talks. They were 40-minute talks with the participation of 1,200 girls. This pilot program allowed us to determine what was working, what could be improved. And after the pilot, we began an initiative with talks in NiñaSTEM. In 2021, we began with virtual talks for 6 months, and 14,000 girls and 1,200 teachers in the state participated. There were 12 star mentors. 6 of them came with, thanks to the facilitation of OECD, and another 6 were mentors proposed by the Department of Education in the state of Coahuila. We use YouTube to give these talks. These talks last for between 15 and 20 minutes. The mentors do experiments, and at the end, the girls can ask questions. And the questions were answered right then. Girls can stay at home to watch the talks, or they can watch them while at school. There is feedback from the teachers from each school. Then they do some activities and they send results as proof of participation. The Department of Education has a web page for NiñaSTEM. Girls can register and teachers can register as well. And when you go in there, you can see who the next mentor is, her experience, her activities, and you can access prior presentations. We will continue working on the NiñaSTEM initiative every school year. And now that I have an opportunity, let me say that right now we are working on a project for this school year to involve 25,000 girls in person and virtually in our program. It's in our state, we have experience in doing these activities in a hybrid manner. The pandemic helped us acquire this experience that has been essential so that we can reach the highest possible number of students and teachers in every school. Finally, let me say the following. On March the 8th, International Day of Women, we had an event in 5 different regions of our state with 70,000 students, girls and boys, because we decided to be inclusive with boys and girls. And this following next year, we want to have the participation of all the students, 150,000 boys and girls, and 2,500 teachers who are helping us with this program in junior high. Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone from the state of Coahuila. I say thank you, and we are here to contribute to this program, which will benefit the girls and boys as well, but especially girls, since it's NiñaSTEM, so they can see the whole range of possibilities before themselves, so they know that they can envision their future, so that they can envision what they can be, so they will not be lagging behind like many other girls who don't have the opportunity. And they can envision that by seeing themselves in the mirror of the mentors of the star scientists. Thank you very much, Mario. And thank to every attendant. Remember that Coahuila, the state of Coahuila, is your ally in moving forward and being successful in every action we promote for the benefit of all girls, boys, teenagers in our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jorge Alberto, for sharing Coahuila's experience with all of us. Hopefully, we'll be able to replicate this experience and disseminate it to the rest of Latin America, because there's a lot that we can learn and a lot that we could use in order to be inspiration or a detonator for other these type of experiences throughout the region. Now, let's start with this second panel that is going to be moderated by our dear Maria de Los Angeles Solorzano, director of the Institute of Innovation and Educational Robotics, and she is a star mentor of NiñaSTEM, and we would like to thank her for her support and to be here with us and throughout all this project that is so dear to all of us. So I'll pass the floor to Maria de Los Angeles Solorzano. Thank you very much, Mario, for giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel. I'm so glad to do it in this very critical program we are experiencing, so that we can scale up this initiative to Latin America and the Caribbean through OECD. It's a privilege to be here. I would like to invite the participants of this panel to turn on their cameras, please. It is so great to greet Antonia Orellana, Minister of Women and Gender Equality from Chile. And I would also like to greet Elspeth McComish, Gender Equality Program Specialist from UNESCO. Welcome. We also have the presence of Eduardo Aguilar Brondo, General Director of Secondary Schools from the Department of Public Education of the State of Coahuila, and Claudette Munoz, Regional Manager in Americas of Legal Education. And well, we also have a surprise for you. We also have the presence of Randall Arias, who is a higher specialist for employers of ILO. So I would like to welcome all of you. We know that in this second panel of this very important event, we know that the point is to reflect upon how both sectors, public and private, can join forces in order to better prepare the integration of women to the future economy. That is, how governments and companies work on strategies so that they can have an impact on preparing these girls in Latin America for the future economy. The dynamics that we are going to follow in order to answer this question is that I'm going to pass the floor to each one of you, and you have up to 3 minutes in order to give your opening remarks on this regard. Please pay attention to the time that you have available, because it's important to manage our time correctly. So you will have this initial participation to answer this initial question, and then we'll have another opportunity to debate or to reflect upon some additional questions that we have for all of you. So without any further ado, I would like to pass the floor, first of all, to Antonia Orellana. Hello, good afternoon from Chile. I would like to greet all the people that are connected to this meeting. Thank you for the invitation. And the first question is, how can both sectors can join forces to help the integration of girls in STEM majors and the future economy? This is a very significant question. In general terms, Chile and the Ministry of Education are working together and fostering the gender equality in the education agenda in order to reactivate the economy, focusing on gender. We've seen an important reduction of the figures of labor participation of women that have been low in comparison to the rest of the country. So we are focusing in the long run in the STEM fields. In general, we will have to make alliances in different educational areas to have this promotion of having more girls in the STEM fields, and later on to have more job opportunities for girls. And we also have to develop plans to close the digital gap at the national level, and different countries have different strategies in order to close this digital gap. There's no equality all over the Latin American countries, and that's why we also require the support from the private companies to increase the digital coverage in order to have a training program first, so that girls acquire these skills and competencies to have access to the digital world and to close this digital gap. So it is essential to have the participation of the private sector, and there are different projects or examples that we've seen in different countries that have given good results in this regards. That is that they've introduced the digital world at different stages of the development of girls, all the way up to their professional development, so that they can have a higher access to technological instruments, and that requires the participation of both the public and private sector, and of course the university education, which is very significant too. Thank you very much. You have mentioned very important topics. It's important to close the digital gap, and this requires important alliances. Thank you very much. Now I would like to pass the floor to Elspeth McComish from UNESCO. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. It's very exciting to hear about this wonderful initiative. So UNESCO's member states have become increasingly interested in promoting gender equality in and through STEM, and we are very keen to ensure that these efforts fully involve the private sector. So I just wanted to give you some background quickly. In 2017, UNESCO published a study called Cracking the Code, Girls and Women's Education in STEM, which is the first ever global study to document why there are gender disparities in STEM studies across the world. In the context of this, we developed an ecological framework which looked at the different factors that influence girls' participation in STEM at the individual, family, institutional, and societal levels. You can see them here. So our experience is that the private sector can play a particularly strong role in addressing social and cultural norms, which we see here under society, in making STEM equipment, materials, and resources available, which we see here, for instance, under schools, and in particular in improving girls' self-efficacy, self-perception, and interest in STEM. And I believe that this is one area that the NiñaSTEM program specifically addresses. Based on this, we have been looking particularly at strengthening our engagement with the private sector in the areas that we have listed here. So for instance, contests and competitions. To give you some kind of global perspective away from Latin America, we have a Miss Sciences competition in Mali that we've been holding since 2018. And the competition selects girls first at the regional level, and then they participate in a national competition, which is organized in Bamako on science and mathematics, where during that time, they do field visits, there are gold and silver medalists who receive prizes. It's really a wonderful opportunity to engage the girls, and so exciting to see how much they want to engage with STEM afterwards. The second is support to role models and career orientation. Well, this is obviously what we've been hearing about now. Gabriela Ramos mentioned earlier the UNESCO L'Oreal Foundation's For Women in Science program, which I'm sure you know honors and rewards women scientists and showcases their work. And then particularly in Africa, we have been supporting often government-led extracurricular STEM camps and school-based school clinics and mentorship programs, which the aim of which is to increase girls' interest in STEM and their understanding of STEM careers. And in Kenya alone, for example, more than 10 million girls have been reached through these programs, which obviously involve the private sector as well. And then finally, we have advocacy opportunities, which we find many media companies and broadcasting unions are interested in working on. Just wanted to quickly give you some information about one program called the Science in Life program, which looks at cooperation between the public and private sectors. This program grew out of the STEM Cancer of Excellence program that was initiated in Kenya in 2014. When COVID-19 hit, it was obviously no longer possible to hold this in person, so a new approach had to be designed. And what we did was we took role models from different science sectors with an emphasis on women and recorded their stories in an audio format. These stories were about how they engaged in science, how their careers were generated, and how they're going. And they had a strong emphasis on talking about the gender dimensions. The mainstream, so FM and community radios, aired the audio stories in order to reach all parts of the country and ensure that no one was left behind. There were promotional advertisements via social media, Facebook and Twitter, etc. And then Safaricom, which is a mobile provider, established a platform so that students could actually engage with the mentors via telephone messaging. So they could send messages, ask questions, and so on, even though they were sort of stuck home because schools were closed. Just quickly on the feedback learned, we had very positive responses. On the positive side, this program enabled us to reach people who are often left behind, the rural poor, those who were unable to access mainstream radio, for instance, were able to access community radio. Girls tended to be much more excited about the program than boys and asked more questions. Parents were very happy with the program. A number of people actually called the radio stations and asked for mentorship for their daughters directly. Some community members called up and asked for specific support to girls in their communities who are very interested in STEM. And for example, the first Maasai girl to do a piloting course was identified through this program. The radio presenters loved it because they learned a lot about STEM. On the negative side, we heard some feedback that some people would have liked it to have been done via television, which actually would have, aside from the cost issue, would have been very difficult in COVID, given the fact that it was not possible to bring people together. But all that to say that technology made this STEM mentorship program actually more accessible to students. And so in that sense, COVID showed us that we can do it. You know, if we think and we put different ideas together, we can move forward. So this is a very quick example of how cooperation between an international organization, the Ministry of Education, private sector, STEM companies, higher education institutions, and private and community radios came together to help develop girls' confidence around STEM. Thank you.
Sin duda, Elspeth, es súper interesante lo que...
There's no doubt that what you share with us is extremely interesting, because we can see several components of the NiñaSTEM program that used to be NiñaSTEM Can. We can identify several components in your presentation, And it is very interesting to see how you emphasize how powerful radio stations are to increase the impact in the communities and to be able to reach parents and communities and raise awareness regarding how important this topic is, and to add up the efforts at different levels, including the community. There's no doubt that we are on the right path. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to pass the floor to Eduardo Aguilar Brondo from the state of Coahuila. He had the opportunity, the first-hand opportunity to experience the hybrid implementation of this program. So please go ahead and share with us those lessons learned from this wonderful program. Hello, good morning. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the director of OECD and the whole team. And thank you for the opportunity that you're given the state of Coahuila to be part of this initiative. And I would specifically like to thank all mentors that have supported us throughout the implementation of the initiative NiñaSTEM. I would like to be very practical in my opinion regarding what we've experienced in the state of Coahuila. I believe that this is where we can join efforts from the public and private sectors in order to have a higher participation of girls in the future economy. And that starts at schools, I mean, in classrooms. It has already been mentioned a moment ago. Most of the labor force is formed by women. So we have to promote girls' participation, and we can guide them to generate the society that we have, that we want, a more inclusive society. And currently, we have a female that is in charge of the Department of Education at the national level. And initially, when this initiative was proposed, Dr. Eugenio, rest in peace, when he made the initial proposal of this initiative, we were concerned because we didn't know how to call more girls to be interested in STEM and how to get rid of these cultural stereotypes because they are born in the family nucleus in schools. And I believe that we are trying to open spaces where they have a higher freedom to decide to study whatever they want, and this especially focuses on the girls of our state because we're trying to guide them, and we tell them that they can do it, they achieve whatever they want, because there are still many areas or many fields in which women themselves say that they cannot become scientists, or they cannot learn technology, or they cannot be engineers or mathematicians. And they say that they cannot be working in the industry because they have to take care of their homes and their children. Unfortunately, we still hear these type of comments from women. So nowadays, we've seen that governments are doing a great effort in order to generate the proper conditions that allow more participation of women in productive activities. But I think that it's not enough so far. We still have to put more of them into practice. We have to open the doors of government and private offices so that women have access to them. First of all, they have to feel confident to be part of these activities without a gender bias. And this is going to increase, this is going to improve the livelihood of our societies and communities. So I believe that the first change that we have to do is to change the mindset of our population, that our girls learn to say, I can do it and I can do whatever I want. And in order to improve the participation of girls, we have to devote more time for practices in very well-equipped labs, and that includes the support of private companies, that they open their doors for students visits so that we increase the interest in STEM fields. I've seen that these type of practices um, make their interest flourish. So with this type of activities, we can guide them. And finally, I would like to point out 3 points that I believe to be important. We have to raise awareness from our own homes. Many times, as Niñas STEM tell us, is that we have to change the gender stereotype that we have from our homes. All of us have to learn not to make differences based on gender. Second important point is that classrooms classrooms have to reach this gender equality. Boys and girls have to have the same level of opportunities. I know that we have to foster more the participation of females, but we'll achieve this if we really convince them that they can do whatever they want. And the third point is to open jobs for women in STEAM with no pay gap and with the same level of decision than men. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eduardo. We share with you the satisfaction to foster this program and to see how the faces of these girls change when they get to know these worlds and when they get to know what the future that they can have. Something very interesting that you pointed out is to include boys too. It's a very big challenge in gender-based program. I mean, to reach equality and to have an equality approach where we foster women, but we do not leave boys behind, because culturally speaking, there's already an interest in them. Well, they have the interest for these fields. There is no doubt that if we put together all our voices, we'll be able to have the strategies and the instruments to strengthen this initiative. Now, I would like to pass the floor to a very important ally that we had in Mexico to launch this program. I would like to say that he's an essential part of the program Girls in STEM, and I would like to pass the floor to Claudette Munoz. She is from legal education. She is the regional manager in Latin America. So go ahead, Claudia. Thank you very much, Angeles. Thank you very much, OECD, for having given us the opportunity to be the part and engine of this initiative. And it's an opportunity to celebrate the steps that we've already taken that are so significant and relevant. And my participation focuses on the STEM experience as ambassador of this topic through legal education. And I would like to begin by sharing with you that we are facing the challenge of innovating in order to improve equality and to have cognitive skills that are superior than the ones that we already have. And currently, we are facing a paradigm that makes education not very interesting for boys, girls, and educators. STEM are not an exception. And PISA tests and UNESCO studies tells us that there's an important percentage of boys, girls, and teenagers that even when they are at school do not have the basic skills or competencies to be part of the STEM world. So we have to change this, and the key is to change the experience of learning. And this is not a different to gender topic. So the first years of life, children have to learn differently. STEM begin at these early stages. There's a phrase, a quote that I would like to share with you. If you change the beginning of the story, you can change the whole story. This is a phrase from Havika Brukian, who is a singer and founder of Child Honoring Center in Canada. I think that this is a very important quote because we have to focus on changing this paradigm from childhood. Based on the UNESCO report, we know that 35% of registered students in STEM majors are women. This percentage has been repeated, but I look at the 35% and I feel like we are behind, that we still have a lot of things to do, and I'm concerned. This 35% takes me to reflect upon the hard work that we still have to do, but it also makes me think about this question: what happens before you make a decision regarding the study, the major that you're going to study, and that is going to make up your role in the society? What happens throughout your education, throughout your basic education, and what is the factor that determines what is the major that that student is going to choose? And we face a very complex situation, and several factors have an impact on the decision that the students have in regards to the major, or if they choose a STEM major. And one of these factors is stereotypes, the other one is the self-efficacy, the other one is the family or the gender bias, the social image, the sensitiveness of faculty. So that's why mentors' role is so important. And one of the most important topics for us in legal education is the scientific education. We have to change education from the initial stages, the educational stages, so that they have a better knowledge of STEM fields or studies and the opportunities that they represent. Private and public initiatives are necessary for these needed changes. We are making some progress step by step, and we see little by little the increase of women participation in STEM fields. Nowadays, there are different competitions that are focused on robotics, FLL, which and World Lego Olympia. And I would like to share an example with you. Every year, Lego Education, in collaboration with FIRST, in order to acknowledge science and technology, we offer the opportunity to boys, girls, and teenagers globally to participate in a guided robotics program. And this gives the opportunity to students and teachers to build here and now a better future through problem resolution. This program confers legally and is designed for students between 4 and 16 years, and STEM are introduced through games, and we have regional national tournaments, and the ones that rank first will have opportunity to participate in international festivals abroad. Now, how relevant first legally is in legal education? Well, for example, in order to give you an idea, in the year 2020, 35% of the teams were made up by girls. And in the year 2021, we had 3% increase, 38% of the teams were girls. This in the teenagers category. And in the category of girls in 2020, the 35% were girls. And in the year 2021, 40% of the teams were formed by girls. That is an increase of 15% of female participants. So little by little, we can see that girls are actively participating in our different activities. And thanks to the synergy with the private sector, it is possible for us to grant scholarships to an important percentage of boys and girls, and this is done through collaboration with different entities, educational entities from different countries, departments of education. In Mexico, we work with the different ministries of the different states and with foundations and industries that are interested in improving the participation of girls in STEM. This initiative is an extraordinary example of the collaboration between the public and the private sectors, and we've seen great enthusiasm from girls when they see these technology programs. And I would like to finish by saying that the progress and technical development and the greater participation of girls in STEM is a work that has to be done by all of us. Thank you very much, Claudette, for your participation and for the support of legal that is trying to change education. You point out that the challenge of education is to make it fun, to make it different, to make education permanent, and to make it a place where everyone wants to be part of. And you also point out how important competencies and skills are, because if you don't know, if you don't see something, you don't know it. So we have to show these new models, new ways of interaction, where boys and girls can participate and they become part of all these competitions. I would like to pass the floor now to our last guest, Randall Arias of the International Labor Organization. Please go ahead. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this panel.
I've been listening everyone talk about education, and from ILO, I'm going to begin by talking about context and elements that can make it worse, but can also give us a lot of hope in the participation of girls in the labor market, and how can we work on structural factors all throughout the change. We have cultural factors regarding gender stereotypes and discrimination, as has been mentioned, but I want to speak of two specific factors. One, conciliating family, work, and economy, and specifically child labor during COVID. We are talking here about how to motivate girls, how to participate in STEM. But we need to consider the context. First, child labor has increased in the last years with the COVID pandemic, which definitely excludes girls from the education system. And here we have some factors. In general, girls in Latin America devote over 21 hours a day to house chores, which is tragic. What can we do to prevent this structural discrimination women suffer when girls have to work inside the house because of roles ascribed to them, unlike boys or women who have to work, or girls that have to work in clear violation of international labor laws and national laws. But there is also another factor that affects girls, whether they can enter the educational system or not, and having to do a lot more housework and other activities. And beyond that, they also suffer structural discrimination at school, and that also depends on the quality of the educational system. And one element that is not usually analyzed is that there are unconscious bias and roles assigned to women, and women suffer systematic harassment throughout school, where they continually receive messages of the role they should be assuming, and that in a way this destroys them regarding STEM in Costa Rica, like the case. But there's also a digital gap. A recent study in Costa Rica shows that 58% of people going to school have low digital skills, because 40% of teachers in basic and middle education have low digital skills. And therefore, we have to look at digital skills and look at them as an essential element, because if in order to participate STEM, we have to overcome the digital issue and bridge the gaps. But 40% of teachers have low digital skills. Then how can you really give proper education to your students? What are the skills and the competencies these teachers have to really work and in educating women with a gender perspective? Then evidently we need a strategy that begins from the private sector, and that's my area. So how can we create public-private areas that will help engage women in the educational system, preventing labor? I'm not just talking about working outside the home, but inside the home as well. And another challenge, because there is structural discrimination in the labor world. And additionally, under the light of the ILO study in 69 countries, in general, 20% of occupations account for STEM, but in Africa, it's not even 15%. And it is just above 20% in rich countries. So what happens to girls when they go out, when they grow and they go out into the world, where in 69%, barely 20% are STEM, and there's another representation of women in these fields. So when you start looking at all of these structural factors, we evidently see a series of faults and deficiencies. And that's my final message. And this is a priority for the ILO. We have to maintain and strengthen participation of girls in education in school. Because with the COVID pandemic, when they went back home, they were once again suffering discrimination due to gender roles, and many girls are still not back. And what happened to women? They stayed back and have not gone back into the labor market because they are still taking care of someone. So we need to open centers for development in early childhood and kindergarten education, because that is when you can really root women in the educational system, and not just the standard educational system with a low level of digital competencies, with discrimination and systematic harassment that has been normalized through messages sent to girls over and over that they have no role in STEM. And we must also work in the labor market that starts opening up, and we have to work so that girls at the end will participate in STEM fields at university. But we cannot get to that point unless they finish basic and secondary education. And we have to eliminate all the costs associated and school tuition. So public-private partnerships are necessary to help girls reach university, where they will begin their professional development in STEM. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You've presented us a structural problem that the program must take into account so that we can overcome all of these obstacles in taking the initiative to the rest of Latin America. Now, we're being told that we have only 10 minutes to debate, reflect, and build some conclusions. Therefore, I would like to give you the word, and please give us some very concrete comments on how do you think private-public partnerships can be established from your point of view, or from your own field. So tell us about a strategy that can bring together the public and private sectors in their efforts. Thank you, Antonia Orellano. Thank you. Like I've said, President Bolitz is a feminist government. And we understand that we have to overcome the traditional distribution of roles in society, but the way or the focus of public policy. So what can we do for public policy to focus on NiñaSTEM and women in the labor market? We have to focus on strengthening the capacities of the ministries and the capacity of the state, including production and bodies in charge of training and certifying education, which is Sense or Cercotec in Chile. And we, from our field, we have to try to maintain consistency and focus of different programs and policies. Regarding education, we want to foster different measures to fight gender stereotypes in technical and professional education and fostering greater inclusion of women and men as well in careers that are traditionally associated to stereotypes and gender roles. And therefore, one of our priorities in the government is to create programs for training and continuous education of women focused on technology and in areas with low women participation, such as STEM, but also based on the needs and requirements of the country's productive sectors, like labor reconversion due to climate crisis opens the window to new places where women can develop in STEM areas that are related to agriculture, for example, but it's also necessary to undertake a digital transformation in cooperation with women entrepreneurs and include young women and girls, because they are part of the family economy efforts at the local level, but they need a point where they can have access to digital development policies. This also helps with the opening of new entrepreneurships in the future for their growth and development in STEM. And finally, because I think that we're running out of time, we believe it is essential for the state to diversify training and to go beyond the traditional division where women are usually given or proposed to undertake certain education and certain certifications. That's something very important that you pointed out. It's not just STEM for labor, but a platform for new entrepreneurs, for new startups, and how to give women opportunities for their development. Thank you very much. This was extremely enriching. Now I give the floor to Elspeth McComish for your final remarks.
Three areas that I consider particularly important. The first is promoting a culture of partnership. So workplaces shouldn't just inherit a workforce that comes out of government and community investment in education. They really need to be active partners in workforce development. So first of all, promoting that idea. Second of all, role models. I think we've heard about that several times today. They're necessary in order to mitigate negative stereotypes and increase girls' self-confidence. And the third one is favoring learning and education over talent. We know that as a result of gender bias, women are often underrepresented in fields where practitioners believe that what they see as sort of raw, innate talent is the main requirement for success. So we need to emphasize an understanding that success comes through learning and personal growth, and that itself can therefore end up reducing gender gaps in these fields. So very briefly, I'll stop at that because I'm aware of the time issues.
Muchas gracias. Superar los
Thank you very much. Cultural stereotypes, which in Latin America are deeply rooted. Thank you very much for your contribution, Elspeth. And now I give the floor to Mr. Eduardo Aguilar. Thank you. Just briefly, I just want to say that we are pretty confident in the participation of the private sector and their collaboration in these changes. We've had experiences that may sound like incredible, but some businessmen go back to their old schools to help after the COVID-19 pandemic with help to equip. They have donated a lot of computers, and they have also helped in training teachers, which has generated more interest of girls in STEM. Another example I'll briefly mention that after the reopening with the participation of parents, authorities, unions, and students, a laboratory is working again. And we have to remember that science laboratories should once again be working, and a lot of emphasis has to be put on lab practice. With the pandemic, QBCs participated a lot. They were helping with COVID testing, helping us understand this disease, helping us to understand the pandemic, to develop the state strategy, the national strategy, and the global strategy. And I always say, behind the doctors, you find chemists and biologists. And we saw the doctors and we recognize the doctors, but it is important to acknowledge the people behind them. And it was really great when a girl from a school approached me and told me, I am going to be a chemist. Have been listening to the talks, and you can take it for granted that I'm going to study chemistry. Someone in the panel said, this is everyone's business, and that is the truth. It is everyone's business. If we all work together and we create the right conditions, the freedom that women will have to choose pursuing STEM or whatever they want to pursue will increase happiness, women happiness, family happiness, and society as well. So yes, let's go on focusing on this, on initiatives like this. And we've had high participation, but let's put as a goal to have full participation from all schools. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And when this program is recognized, it's acknowledged by society, it's acknowledged by everyone, that is great. We have to go out and find mentors, people who will be helping us with resources, with talks, with their capabilities, so that we can continue strengthening this program. Thank you very much. And now I give the word to Claudette Munoz. Please give us your final remarks. Thank you, Angeles. First, let me say that we must continue working along this line. We must acknowledge all the progress already made. STEM has to be significant, it has to be real, it has to be inclusive. So far, there's no evidence that there are differences in STEM learning between men and women. We know it is a cultural issue. According to a longitudinal study from Brandeis University with the FLL, it shows that participating in programs like First Legally have a lot of impact, especially on girls. 51% of girls who have participated 3 consecutive years in the program choose a path related to engineering. And in regarding identity and STEM, then it shows that they are also ahead than others if they have been participating. So we must help girls to foster their sense of pertaining to STEM, of being part. And we need all to also work with public-private partnerships, which are essential so that we can get farther ahead. And we have to raise awareness in the educational community, raise awareness and educate, and that includes parents, includes teachers, because sometimes STEM come with a certain fear. So you must raise awareness that STEM is not just for Nobel Prizes, but we have to be participants of the solution in the short, medium, and long term. That is for sure. And finally, we have a question from the audience. And the question is about toys that you recommend. What toys can you give girls to develop their interest in STEM? Yes, that's a great question. We have robotic sets. These are educational toys because it creates a dichotomy between play and education. It may seem that play is nothing more than an activity, but it is a very important method that gets students involved. They analyze, they understand, and they build their knowledge. There is a hub with different ports, for example, and this hub can be programmed, can be coded, and we have toys beginning and the kindergarten, because you have to start teaching STEM in early childhood, and then what we call physical coding, where children in kindergarten start making decisions, programming, and developing analytical thought. And there is a progression going into iconic programming and then text programming like MicroPython, Python, even Raspberry Pi collaborations to develop AI. And something that may seem little, but it is important to say that sets are inclusive. There are sets with different colors. Someone mentioned the importance of colors regarding culture and belonging, because it is important to attract not only boys, but girls as well. So our objective is to include as many children as possible in STEM to help them, so they, boys and girls, understand that robotic and STEM is a watershed in education. Yes, thank you very much. And all your kids are in line with construction. And it always has a certain objective. Sometimes teachers come and tell me, but how can I have girls and boys play? How can I help them play? And that makes me think, well, we need to more communication, because there are very great toys for education. We are running out of time. Thank you, Claudette. Now I give the word to Randall Arias from ILO for your final remarks. I want to leave with a positive message, and let me tell you that the private sector in public-private partnerships are more aware of the necessary of tackling discrimination, gender-based discrimination. The less discrimination and the more equal societies are in general, more women will undoubtedly follow STEM, undoubtedly. So you have to go to the structural, the root, and how to model behavior in work centers, put an end to discrimination, gender discrimination, because that is going to allow more women to go into or return into the labor market after the COVID pandemic and participate in STEM. So we finally reach equality, starting from recruitment throughout the labor life and throughout every stage in the labor life of people, so that more awareness is raised and the private sector is working, and they know that non-discrimination is a good business, not just ethically, but also because women are productive, they generate wealth, and a company with a greater participation of women will be more profitable. But they have a lot of work, and they have to transform culture in their work center. There's still a lot of discrimination, which is a reflection of discrimination at home. Unless we transform economy, unless we develop co-responsibility and equal distribution of house chores, until we stop saying that house chores are feminine, and we begin relieving women and girls at home to give them more time to study. But we must remember that even if we relieve them from doing all the chores, there's still a wide digital gap and discrimination in schools, and we have to work in the education system. So what I'm trying to say is that there are too many factors to address. But finally, I just want to give good news in that with the public-private alliances, we are going down the right path, maybe not as fast as we would like, but the right path. You are so right, Randall. Thank you very much. So this panel makes it clear that bridging the gap in STEM requires the systematic and pertinent actions, always getting us close to the real problem. The real problem is very complex, but to solve that problem, we need actions on both sides of the market. Beyond raising awareness on gender inequality and the gaps perpetuating them, governments and companies could find strategies to cooperate and transform this area, making women an important part of STEM careers. We need a lot more time to continue with this discussion, but we must remember that we have to go back to data from UNESCO, OECD, and other organizations which are essential for our reflection. So that's all on my part. I want to thank all the panel members for their presence. And now I give the floor to Jose Antonio Ardavin and Ambassador Sibel Galvan, who will give the closing remarks of our event. Thank you very much, Angeles. Congratulations to you and all the panel members of the second discussion. It was very interesting as the first panel, and I agree that this has been a very enriching event. Some events said a before and an after like this one. As Claudette was saying, if we go and change back the beginning of the story, we can change the whole story. Let's do that, bringing in all the experience and the lessons learned from these panels. These discussions have shown the need for public policies and a partnership between families, schools, civil society, government, international organizations to promote interest for STEM among girls, particularly in our dear Latin America. Now we have many more elements that can help us implement this initiative in Latin America. We have data, we have successful experiences of governments such as the Colombian government, the momentum of new governments like Chile's government. We have looked at the coordination between national governments like the Mexican government and state governments like the state of Coahuila. And we have mentors that can also mentor girls in the whole of Latin America, given that we speak the same language. We have a lot of experience from UNESCO, OECD, and ILO, and we have the push of companies like Microsoft and Lego. We have also different national institutions and bodies like the Canadian body that accompanied us. We have clear ideas of what can be done and what should be done. Martha's words were great. We don't have to make girls behave like boys, to act like boys. As we have seen in the policy and in other many places, they should contribute with their feminine mindset, with collaboration in the whole area of STEM. I can proudly say that my team is mostly women, and they bring a very rich view to our work in Latin America and the Caribbean. I want to thank Sofia, Daniela, Angela, Jumaira, Julie, and the team at the OECD Center, Adriana, Daphne, Mario, Marta, Ariadna, the mentors and panel members, Ambassador Galvan, the interpretation team, and every person that made this event possible. Going back to the opening words of the champions, we have all the necessary components to help more girls in Latin America fulfill their dreams. And for that reason, OECD and the LAC program from OECD, we want to invite all participants and institutions and representatives of countries, companies, and civil society to join our initiative. We'll be in touch with you to see what we can do to put in practice everything that was said today. We have a lot of momentum that we have to use, and this initiative can help our daughters, our nieces, our sisters, so to give them the tools to become who they want to become. NiñaSTEM will give rise to the next great astronomer and scientist and the next great women that will be fulfilling their dreams. I give the word to Ambassador Sibel Galvan, who has also been promoting this event. And thank you for bringing this initiative to the rest of Latin America. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose Antonio, and I join your congratulations. I congratulate all the members of the panel. This has been a very enriching meeting, and it's where I really glad to have the opportunity to listen to the initiatives implemented in all countries, or the initiatives to include indigenous groups and other vulnerable groups that have an impact on the economic development, and the importance of initiatives such as the one from Microsoft that due to its nature can have a great scope. And we see that the scope of gender equality is also a matter of security and economic growth. And that's why it's important to insist on the creation of indicators. And we have to measure the value of women per se in all the environments of their life. And also we would like to close the digital gap. And we were undergoing digital migration and transformation, but COVID came to accelerate this progress, and in turn it made more evident the gap in technology skills and some other areas. So this is a matter that affects everybody, and it requires effort and participation from all us to guide them and show them that they can achieve what they want. We have to make them understand that there's no job or profession that has to be associated to a specific gender. That's why it's important to listen to the different options and public and private alliances. We still have a long way to go, but these type of encounters are useful to continue learning from the different strategies or initiatives implemented in different countries and different areas to be able to improve our societies. I join Jose Antonio's words. We are here to share our experience on the NiñaSTEM initiative, and the whole region can benefit from the results that we obtained thanks to the implementation of this program. I would like to thank OECD and all the organizers for having organized this meeting. Thank you.